In 2004, Nigeria took a leading role in its pension administration with the enactment of the Pension Reform Act.
Remember what a pension fund is for, but I think, we can use the assets better.
And in 2014, Nigeria hosted the first Africa Special Edition of the World event to mark the 10th anniversary of pension reforms in Nigeria.
I think I totally agree with Fiona. And
there are greater social policy concerns.
This time around, the country hosts the World Pension Summit, Africa Special, an annual specialized summit for Africa. The summit, jointly planned with the National Pension Commission of Nigeria, PENCOM, brings together African pension professionals to share ideas and brainstorm on pension innovations, the development of the scheme, among others. This year's theme is tagged Pension Innovations, the African Perspective. And it entertained comments from finance experts, African social security and pension professionals, as well as major stakeholders from around the globe.
Well over 7 million.
The summit is seen to be timely in Nigeria as it comes at a time the country is grappling with economic crisis.
With a view
It's day 3 of the summit, and a 25-minute panel discussion is set up to dissect the issues so far raised on matters of pension and the gains of ensuring that the funds are invested in the real sector across Africa.
Can we give me a huge round of applause now? You can take your seat over there, please. Thank you.
The Executive Director, Royal Africa Society, Raquel Dodi, is the panel coordinator. He's joined by the panelists, which include Senator Sanusi Dagash, Mr. Tony Elumelu, and the Minister for Public Service in Uganda, Wilson Mukasa.
At the very moment at which the oil price has gone down and depressed the Nigerian economy, we now have come across this perhaps new pot of gold, which is the pensions and looking at the long term.
This is a continental platform for all of Africa, so I would like to broaden the conversation a little bit to the issue of the economic prosperity of Africa, because Nigeria is a microcosm of Africa, and what happens in Nigeria affects all of Africa. Africa Rising is a narrative that we hear about every time, and we've heard about this for a long time. And the question people are beginning to ask is, when will Africa indeed rise? Not just about Africa rising. And for Africa to rise, there are things we must do. I will talk about 2, and maybe others can talk about others. One of the things we need to do if Africa must rise, in my viewpoint, is we need to deal with the issue of infrastructure. If we deal with the issue of infrastructure, it will help Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, etc., to diversify their economies and grow economic prosperity for their people. And to deal with infrastructure, we need to mobilize capital. And the surest way of mobilizing capital is national savings mobilization and regional savings mobilization. So what PENCOM in Nigeria and across Africa, what you're doing is great. You're helping to mobilize capital, which should help us to fire infrastructure. And as we deal with infrastructure, we deal with issue of poverty, issue of economic inclusiveness, issue of prosperity for everyone, and we're able to diversify the economy and with the attendant benefits of diversification of the economies. The second point is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is very important. And I believe that in Africa we have abundance of innovative ideas. Our people are talented, energetic. So the demographic structure of our population is such that we must find a creative way of engaging our young ones. And our young ones are ready to be engaged. And we must engage them if we must deal with the issue of development on the continent. So we need all of us to support entrepreneurs. That is why in our little world, the Tony Elumelu Foundation is trying to help support 10,000 African entrepreneurs, because they succeed, we all succeed in Africa. So today, as we celebrate and reward people who have done well in helping us to mobilize savings that will help us drive infrastructure development, which will lead to poverty alleviation, economic prosperity, inclusive growth and employment, we need to think of how we can establish a nexus, or how we can get the PENCOM organizations, the PENCOM PFAs, to help us support entrepreneurship beyond infrastructure. So infrastructure is good. I know Chinelo in Nigeria, they tweaked with the PENCOM regulation guidelines to support infrastructure. But to support infrastructure, we must also find a creative way of supporting entrepreneurs. Why do I say this? We mobilize our savings and we can channel our savings to areas that will help us drive development. A key aspect, what will help us on the continent, is to make sure we engage our youth. And our youth, they need access to capital, they need mentoring, and if through PENCOM, even if it's 5% of the national and regional savings mobilization, that we channel into the entrepreneurship space to help our young entrepreneurs prove their concepts.
At least to form one small unit. That small unit...
Mr. Mukasa says only a few sectors of the economy are strategic to unlocking the potentials of Nigeria and the entire continent through the PENCOM window. He calls for prioritization and discipline in governance, and also closer ties among Africans to ease trades and commerce.
Key among these, there is infrastructure, there is power, there is agriculture, and inevitably industrialization, at least based initially on agriculture and maybe the minerals which may be available, but at least those key, there's energy as well. Those key areas where we need to put effort and even put all the resources which we have, PENCOM resources and otherwise, and resources for friends. Then after some time, when we've taken off, then we can look at other sectors. But definitely prioritization is important. Discipline as well is important in all aspects. Discipline in all aspects, that's important. That way, I think, we shall overcome some of these shortcomings which we are facing now. Oh yes, I would agree, there is a lot of sense in numbers. In the case of Uganda, it is land-linked. Certainly, we cannot afford to be on our own. Certainly not. We need East Africa, we need Kenya, we need Tanzania, we need South Sudan, we need Rwanda and Burundi, at least to form one small unit. That small unit can be a good market. I think that small unit, we are talking about 155 or 160 million people. That can be a very good market. And of course, if we add the COMESA, if we add the SADC, if we add ECOWAS, if it comes on board, then we form a very large continental market.